Welcome to the Ignition News. It's good to have you on the show today. We have a few stories to talk about. I'm excited, but I love the trivia. So let us get into our trivia. It is May 14th, and in 1607, English settlers established Jamestown, Virginia, marking the first permanent English settlement in North America and the beginning of a brutal era of colonial expansion. In 1796, Edward Jenner performs the first smallpox vaccine in England, obviously a big breakthrough in public health. In 1942, Congress creates the Women's Auxiliary Army Corps, allowing women to serve in non-combat roles in the Second World War, something Pete Hegseth is actively working to dismantle. In 1973, Skylab, the first space station launched by the United States, reaches orbit to begin its mission for celestial observation. Let's see, what do we got? It's National Dance Like a Chicken Day. It is International Chihuahua Appreciation Day, something I'm sure you are already aware of. I'm sure that's no surprise. And it's National Decency Day. That's good. And what else? For birthdays, it's George Lucas's birthday today. It's Mark Zuckerberg's birthday today. The world's obviously a much better place. Let's see. Oh, I like this one. What did the investigative journalist why did the investigative journalist bring a ladder to work? Because they wanted to look into high-level corruption. That is neat. I'll just get my microphone sorted out here. Yeah. So anyways, good morning. Obviously, we have a lot of stories happening today. So we want to talk through them. We have just 3 stories that we want to cover today, but they all kind of loop together in a way that I think is quite important. So let's go ahead and get to it. First segment today, we're going to talk about the what was once considered the unlikely situation that the president would be able to basically raid the Treasury. That the president has sued the IRS for $10 billion. He filed that lawsuit in January, alleging that the government failed to stop a contractor from leaking his tax returns back in 2019. A guy named Charles Littlejohn, who, by the way, has already pled guilty and got 5 years in prison for that. But the story was not over there, because the president decided to take the bold initiative. By the way, J.D. Vance, right? He's on this campaign to end corruption. So the president sues the IRS. And of course, the DOJ is run by Todd Blanche, who has been the president's personal attorney. The president personally bragged that Blanche kept him out of jail for years. And the Justice Department, led by the president's former attorney in his criminal matter, is leading the negotiations with the president. The president is leading the negotiation with his former attorney with himself. So 2 options are on the table here. Option 1, a direct cash payout to the president and his sons from the Treasury. Option 2, the IRS drops all audits of Trump, his family, and his business permanently. So what you have is the president is negotiating with himself. His lawyers are on one side of the table. His government is on the other side of the table. And it's basically the same guy in both chairs. Obviously, a federal judge has already flagged the obvious constitutional problem, not noting that, of course, the president named adversaries are entities whose decision are subject to his direction. In plain language, you can't sue someone you control. But the race to settle before a May 20th hearing means nobody may have an answer for that in court. For what it's worth, the Tax Law Center pointed out that this might be a crime. Federal law under Section 7217 of the tax codes makes it explicitly illegal for the president or White House to directly or indirectly request that the IRS terminate any ongoing audit. Violations carry 5 years in prison. Senator Elizabeth Warren called it a, quote, massive, unprecedented scandal. Don Beyer called it the largest single act of grand larceny in history. So we have a president who ran this America First campaign trying to pickpocket America's treasury, and the people running that settlement are the people who work for him. Wild. Meanwhile, Americans are leaving, not just visiting other places. They're not just vacationing in foreign countries. They are permanently leaving. An estimated 180,000 Americans emigrated in 2025, according to the Pew Research Center. That is the largest outbound migration of United citizens in decades. And for the first time since the Great Depression, the United States saw net negative migration. More people left the United States than arrived in the United States. Let that sit for a minute. This is a country that has, literally built on immigration. This is the place that people risked everything to come to, right? And it's now a place where more people have left than have entered the country. Renunciations tell the same story. Before 2009, roughly 200 to 400 Americans formally renounced their citizenship. That's where you just give up your citizenship. And the global queue for renunciation appointments now exceeds 30,000 people. 30,000 Americans are waiting in line to give up their citizenship. The renunciation fee also dropped from $23.50 to $450. So because of that, analysts expect the number to dramatically accelerate. And it's not just the wealthy leaving. It is average everyday people like you and I. A February 2025 Harris poll found that 68% of Americans considered emigrating cited unattainable homeownership and feeling like they were merely surviving instead of thriving. 49% cited cost of living, 49% cited political disagreement. Women aged 15 to 44 are the most likely to want out, with 40% saying they're likely to leave permanently. That is 4 times higher than any other demographic group measured. And that's 4 times higher than any other demographic group measured just over a decade ago. And they're going to Germany, Spain, Portugal, France, Canada, and Mexico, which already holds 1.6 million American expats. All 27 EU member states are seeing record arrivals of Americans. And the U.S. passport, obviously, also a problem. Global Citizen Solutions ranked it the first in the world lifestyle mobility in 2021. And it has dropped to 14th place. 30,000 Americans are standing in a line to stop being an American citizen. And the passport sort of status, if you will, has dropped 13 places. And they're not fleeing in a panic, by the way. The data is quite clear on this. The people acting on it tend to be very deliberate. They're taking their time. They are financially stable. They have done the math about staying in the United States, and they have decided that it's not worth it. That is not some sort of like crazy, it's not like a zombie movie where people are fleeing. People are sitting down, they're writing out on pencil and paper, and they're deciding that they can't live in the country that many of them were born in. Here's how the stories connect, in my assessment, right? You have the president plundering the treasury. You have people who have just had too much, and you have a situation where, as I discussed yesterday, we're living in a state of inverted totalitarianism. All across the country, we're seeing the situation where people are going to these city council meetings and they are literally saying they've had enough. They ask their city council to say, no, I'm not going to do something. Don't put this data center here. And they put it there anyway. And that leaves us with the question. What about those people who can't leave? What about those people who just can't leave, who don't have the financial resources, who don't have the ability to pack up, who don't have the ability to take their family, people who have disabled relatives, people who have, in many cases, disabilities that I didn't know this, but there are many countries that make it very difficult to migrate to if you have a disability, let alone people who are maybe they have a felony for something they did when they were a kid, or maybe they did something that they weren't supposed to do. And they're stuck here. It is a tragedy. It's a lot of those people that I think about often, right? And the last story I wanted to talk about today is the DNC. And we talked about this yesterday. We talked about how even with massive swings in Democratic polling with massive upturns in the Democrats' position. The Democrats simply are not poised now as effectively as they could be because of these gerrymandering wars. And this story has been covered many times, right? We're talking about the autopsy report from the DNC. The reality is that the DNC conducted an autopsy with consultants to figure out why it lost the 2024 election. And many of us know the reasons, of course, or suspect, but for some reason, the Democratic Party has opted not to release that. And the question here is, what are they hiding? So I wanted to comment on just some things that people are saying. I actually went to Reddit and I wanted to see what is the common person thinking. So here's something someone said. This is a quote. My theory is that the report reveals the major DNC donors and the voter base want completely different things, and the DNC is supporting the donors instead of the voters. In particular, I think the DNC is working to suppress progressive candidates. The old guard are terrified of a revolt by young progressives. Someone says, yep, because when you're rich, all the other implications of public policy don't really affect you because you have the money to live the way you want, no matter what. Medicare, Medicaid cuts, you can afford cash pay. Public education, your kids are already in expensive private schools or homeschooled. Daycare assistance, you have a live-in nanny. SNAP benefits, please. Democracy dies and the country goes to shit. You have homes set up in other countries, private islands, and places that you can go to at a drop of the hat. That is such a brilliant encapsulation. But we also have, obviously, what I think we would see is voter response to the situation in Gaza and the Democratic Party's refusal to address this. Here's something someone else said. I don't see a future where the DNC can continue to exist as they did prior to 2024. The voter base largely supports some form of socialized medicine, tax reform, rejection of aid to certain countries, committing certain acts in 2 countries now, etc. The current DNC has run out of cultural moments to sell its base. Now it has to function and produce actual material results to its people. And when its current donor class, it can't do that. Thankfully, Trump exists for them as a rallying point. When he's gone, what do they have? Exactly. The Democratic Party is essentially a party of reform. They had a report that they spent at least hundreds of thousands of dollars on, likely millions of dollars. And the fact that they're hiding it alone is the biggest tell. They have been running the same playbook for a decade. The political compass in this country has skewed so far to the right that essentially the Democratic Party now, the prominent, I was watching a video of my current Democratic congresswoman, and I can't distinguish the way she speaks, the policy she advocates for, as being any fundamentally different than a Republican in my early 20s. Somehow, the DNC right now is 6 points less favorable than MAGA Republicans. People are not voting for Democrats in 2026 because they are excited about Democrats. Can you think of the last Democrat you were excited about? And I talked about this in a different format, but I believe the single biggest pivot moment will come in 2 forms and factions, one more powerful than the next. Number 1, Graham Plattner will win in Maine. A Graham Plattner victory will fundamentally disrupt the DNC, and it will prove that the DNC does not have the relevance or power to stop ascendant progressive candidates. Number 2, James Tallarico will reshape what it means to be a progressive Christian Democrat in the United States of America, which will fundamentally alter the power structure in key battleground states if the Democratic Party is willing to accept a Christian voter base. But this remains a question, and it remains a challenge for Tallarico. Now, there's questions also about if there is actually a report. Now, I would just remind you, when you're thinking about the DNC and the hazards of democracy at this time in America right now, after the 2016 election, the DNC actually blacklisted consultants who worked for ascendant progressive candidates. Did I forget to button my shirt? What am I going to do with myself? So because of the rise of Bernie Sanders, 2016 and 2020, the DNC actually, let's actually look this up. I'll make sure DNC blacklist. I haven't looked up consultant. I'll make sure I'm getting this right. Pull it up. Pull it up. Yes. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee ended its controversial blacklist policy in March of 2021, reversing a rule that banned consultants and firms from working with the organization if they also managed primary challenges against sitting Democratic incumbents. The ban aimed at protecting incumbents was heavily criticized by Republicans. So yeah, the DCCC blacklisted consultants who worked for campaigns where people primaried incumbents. There is simply nothing more anti-democratic than that. Do we live in a country where you should be able to vote for the person you want or not? Well, the Democratic Party said no. If you work as a consultant for any campaign challenging someone who's sitting in seat right now, you are blacklisted. And it had a massive and sweeping effect. This is these people's livelihoods. Millions and millions, sometimes billions of dollars, obviously. The last you will never work for Democratic policy again in the DCCC. That is unacceptable. But now we're seeing it again. And the thing that I keep saying is, you can't simply have, as a Democratic Party, your policy be, oh, we are not Donald Trump. That doesn't work anymore. And the Democrats have to find a solution. So all of these stories kind of point in one direction, in my assessment, when you really look at it. And that is that America is like a ship in the ocean. And it is a ship that has sort of lost its propulsion. We are sitting out in the ocean, and we are not particularly pointing in one direction. In the working class, we are stuck below the ship in the quarters with, the rodents. The wealthy people, they keep getting their catered meals, their fancy room service. They're having luxury social hours, even while the ship doesn't move. All of the accoutrements of their wealth are being serviced to them. More and more, of course, has to be taken from the working class, those of us at the bottom, in order to continue to service the wealthy as the ship continues to be rudderless, not moving anywhere. But some people on the ship, as we discussed, they are saying, we got to go. We got to get out of here. And so secretly, they're getting together and they're getting on their life rafts, and in the middle of the night, they're quietly leaving. Someone with passion and vision and knowledge needs to take control of the ship. Or else, America's truly lost at sea. This is the Ignition News. It's May 14th. We'll see you back live tomorrow. Stay safe and stay lit. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff.